Okay, so yeah, let's have a brief presentation of the Parisian shape. So this small presentation is meant to actually give uh, some clues about what I'm doing for many years on what I call the Paris sandbox. Is actually I live there, and it's always a pleasure to participate to this CEUM engine meeting. So let's get started. A bit of history. So it's not Paris history. It would be so boring. It's just a little background on what the reasons why I end up actually doing a full Paris, what I call digital like, uh, how it's made, and you see that there was a lot of constraints and things like that. Eventually, I would try to answer the question why shaping Paris. I mean, why making a full Paris digital like, and eventually, if we have still time after a bit of demos, real-time demos, we see that. So a bit of story for me. It's been uh, more than 25 years. I'm what I call myself a synthetic environment production designer, which is a guy who tries to make some visuals, mainly for real time at the time, real time application like simulation and so on. But it could also be for just movies or for videos or things like that. Yeah. So for those who know City Engine for many years, this was actually a story back in 2009, I guess, uh, where I was just increasing in developing the skills of doing things all procedurally with City Engine. It was the first uh, 2009 version, I guess. But I dropped in the City Engine train before that, at the very beginning, actually. So yeah, and synthetic environment design is just represents things for various applications. So I'm not a planner. I'm not using this for planning, and I run my own company for 20 years, yeah, 22 years now. And also recently, I also co-founded another company, which is SynPlanet, but I won't talk too much about that. And I'm just the head of design of this company. It's very recent. So when we're talking about synthetic environment production design, it's just all about scaling. And obviously, the most obvious things about that is to use GIS data source and tools to produce things procedurally, which means you have some input, you process things, and you output a 3D representation. And this could work and should work at any scale. So what's the reason for that? Before, yeah, 25 years ago, when we were building simulators, we you don't have any full globe data sets like we have now in whether in S3 World Imagery or CEUM or Google 3D Ties, whatever. So there was a lack of building things, and one of the reasons to use this kind of, uh, of procedural technology was really obvious. So mainly it's to go from low polygon to medium to high poly, and also everything has to be built upon what we call grammars, where we identify typologies for buildings, for roads, for street sectors, for everything, and a bit like what for the people who know that, who are familiar with, like biomes, but for the man-made structures. Uh, in this, another thing I've done was done last year actually. I partnered with a company, a French company called Lis and I have done an entire word grammar. It's a low poly. grammar, but it's working for the entire Earth. And it's available if somebody, and Luxeta is actually a partner of partnering with S3 and S3 France on this, because we basically put City Engine on the loop on the web service, and it can generate things out of just imagery. And so this is a bit like a back end, because when you process the things on the web, you won't see how it's done, but it's working and it's great. Yeah. So we are looking here at some examples of productions synthetic environment done for mainly simulators. It's helicopter simulators, so everything has to be very rendered very quick. It's always in real time. It's not necessarily in Unreal Engine at the time. Unreal Engine wasn't the main the main engine available. It could be Unity or proprietary engines. Oh, yeah. Let's have a look at this. It's more defined ground view. It's also real time, and it's this kind of environment is not done for simulation, but it's completely, totally fictional. But it's for what we call XR virtual productions, and so you can have actors put in front of a green screen or a LED screen, and you can shoot whatever you like inside. But let's go back to Paris, because it's the presentation itself is about Paris. So I'm not talking here about digital twin. I'm talking more about a digital like. Digital like is what it is. It's a digital lookalike. I mean, it's not have all the foundations and all the steerable things to leverage full global scale simulation in it, but it's the only purpose of that is to look like what it's supposed to look like. Of course, you can say that okay, you could simply go inside the street and scan everything, but at the time when I started this kind of sandbox project, it was almost 10 years ago, and the tech wasn't really nice, and obviously I have the time, and of course there is also lots of constraints, meaning that you can't scan, you can't fly a drone in Paris, you can't, and it's obviously a nightmare. So I said, okay, let's challenge myself and try to find a way to model things procedurally and build the entire thing. For the buildings, it's something that I've been making for many years, and actually the process, the workflow of building things out of building footprints or mass models and apply then rules, of course, with City Engine was quite a logical process, and everything was working really well. So I won't go into details into the proceduralism which is behind all the buildings that you will see in the demo afterward. But basically, now I am at a step where every historical ages of building and construction in Paris are inside my library, and everything is labelized. Everything is working very nice, and it was also difficult to find a way to make those buildings look like as if they were real things, like everything is terraced in Paris. So everybody has some sharing side walls. All the streets, the roof slopes are, yeah, obeying to certain rules and so on. So basically, it was hard to do, but eventually I succeeded in doing that. Then I realized that I hadn't any ground at all. And so we are now back in 2018, I guess. I had some fancy buildings. Uh, Everything was really great, but I had no ground. So no street, no pavement, no curbs, no sidewalks, no nothing. Uh, okay. And I decided to go to have a look at what was available as open data. And the most basic things you guys I was using City Engine was to say, okay, let's try to reconstruct things and actually to make things look like if they were issued from the real thing. And I tried with Graph, but there were so many drawbacks with that that I dropped the solution. It wasn't a viable solution. So it was almost impossible to, yeah, but actually it's if some things could change into the in the way many intersections are done in City Engine, it could be interesting to have a second look to these options. So again, I just deep dive into what's available as open data, and actually found that almost everything was there, but as always and or as often as simple 2D vector data, and not necessarily in the good way, in the good data model at all. So you could have some linears representing the curves. You could have some areas, some surfaces. You could have some just punctuals, but actually they were not stored as punctual. They were stored as little surfaces and so on, with massive amounts of calculated or surveyed attributes, etc. So I said, yeah, right. Let's make that a nice challenge and try to figure out a way to, as it is for the buildings, derive all the ground features from shapes, from what we call static shapes. Actually, it's not static shapes because all the process is in fact automatic. So, and this is, yeah, this is a sort of how can I say that? You know, when you try to figure out a solution and you find something that actually works, it's always tempting to consider if we, yeah, to consider everything as as diggable and workable only with the only tools that you have. But actually, it's not the case. But since I was in the providing that everything was treated as a surface, I needed to so I needed to find a way to work that out, and it actually worked. Um, the cool thing is that now everything's well surface, so topology matters a lot, and I had to build something like the way I did for the buildings, and deep dive into CGA and occlusion test and build some proximities rules with trying to figure some, yeah, to do lots of maths to find what where for example at the cross section between at the edge between the streets and the sidewalk, find a way to derive curves and frontiers between them, and that they flow, and everything should have to be flowing naturally. The other thing was that not any UV at all, like what we have in the graphs, for instance. And then I realized that there is, I guess there is yeah, okay, whatever. There is something which is missing in the presentation. That's weird. Maybe. Oh, it's after. Okay, sorry for that. So yeah, I had something that was actually working and was able to reconstruct a digital like of Paris with very resoluted features, with nice buildings, lots of textures, and actually all the things look a bit like Paris, like the neighborhood. But I haven't answered the why shipping Paris, and eventually a few years ago, everything I was doing, and I was posting a bit about that. It drew attention at Esri France, and some people in the municipalities, of course, were interested in taking advantage of this kind of likeness to build interactive, or at least immersive presentations for the consultation they had, for various planning meetings, and this is how I end up just beautifying and making things everything's working properly, and draw a very solid pipeline from heterogeneous data, open data, CAD project data, fill everything inside inside City Engine, and then build out of that some really massive real-time presentations, which were and are still Unreal Engine based. So one of course the one of the things that have to be done is was consolidating the pipeline, because I had a pipeline for building things out of open data, which were actually pretty uniform. But and then I received typical CAD drawings, so I had to build an automatic linear to surface convention. So it's not really ArcGIS here, but it's because it's lots of topology and cleaning, and it's very deep inside the core of the vertices, everything. But it's working nicely. There is a small video, but I will do it shortly. Small video, and you have all the process. Basically, you have, yeah. So, I don't know if it's tapping. So yeah, the same thing for the CAD data coming from the project. So in City Engine, you have everything done procedurally. You have all the scenarios, and then you have the visualization inside. So if I can share a bit, we have a bit of 5 minutes left. I wanted to share that inside. So as you have seen, I have the old Paris shapes. Normally, when I want to make something inside for a particular street or particular neighborhood, it's really better for performances and occlusion test calculations and so on, to not to bring the whole Paris map inside City Engine. So there is also a process to automatically crop the source data and just process things. Then the scenario part, here we are just looking at a small extract. It's just a changing. I will switch the model on. So here, this is the existent street, and they were having this consultation with the neighborhood people to actually vote if they wanted to have a pedestrian street like here. And there were actually two options. One just like that. One is some planters and a bit of greenery inside the street. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, basically you have everything which is represented. So you see that all the source data is actually very simple shapes, plantings, representation of the crossroads. You have all these curbs, this big granite stone, which are very typical in Paris. Everything is done out of not that complicated CGA, but it's interesting. You have the scenarios and so on. Yeah, some more examples. So it allowed me to build actually every place in Paris and have a very nice presentation, I guess. And what's interesting with that, as it's a digital like, the people actually recognize the building they are, even if the number of windows isn't exactly the same, or if the facade of the building isn't exactly the same. It's doing the trick, and it's working very nicely for the people to identify uh, the the project and project themselves inside the project. Yeah, shaping Paris is also fun because just I will finish with that. Last year, I eventually was commissioned to make a full Paris virtual Paris. It was, yeah, as you can see, built for prints, massive prints inside Paris. Was for Renault and so on. So what you can see here is that it's the Paris digital like modified procedurally, obviously, of course, in order to have some big Haussmannian buildings with tennis courts on the top. It was just a few modification. In fact, the inside the Haussmannian building typology, but everything is real data, in fact. And I even modified all the street layout and so on. And basically, the two things you are looking at now, so the big Renault emblem and the big five, are actually 4 kilometers long because of the anamorphosis and so on, and was a fun thing to do. And I had a bit like this mirror in a mirror thing when I was walking inside Paris and showed some of the of the advertisement was in May last year. I was crazy enough to go really deep inside the detail because actually the whole thing was rendered in Unreal since this is the main tool I use for the visualization. Almost, yeah, I can't remember, but 20 billion polygons. Was crazy enough to even put some tennis players on the tops who were actually animated. But yeah, who cares? So yeah, they were also used to do some DOH, so you know this virtual kind of shots. And here you can see at the end that this is the real thing. So basically, and I will finish with that, is that I found a solution, a workflow which is scalable and can actually work everywhere. I mean, if there are some open data, if there are some shapes describing the ground and so on, I'm thanks to City Engine and all the CGA possibilities, able to derive that from basic 2D data to a full 3D ground surface. So yeah, you can see on the top image, it's I don't know, the city in Germany. The middle is actually the open data available for Barcelona, and at the bottom it's Miami. And for the buildings, the cool thing is now this the full Haussmannian grammar developed for the buildings are also available to expand that and do some other typologies, because for also all buildings and modifying just a few assets and a few tokens to do some some German buildings or Austrian buildings, and that's a cool thing. Yes, and so here it's last images of what we are doing at CEUM Planet, and we already made a full scale Miami and Miami Dade actually, and everything is really great, and it's pretty well. And I believe there is some sound inside this one, and it will be the end of the presentation. So this is a kind of Dubai thing, and now with AI and so on, you can even go deeper and amplify things, and the crossroad between intersection between AI and proceduralism is really heavy thing, and it will blast me for years to come. Yep, I think I'm done. I hope I wasn't too long.
Very nice, as always.
I'm really sorry for the awful setup and me moving around and
It's all good.
because I couldn't see the button for sharing and so on. So what a mess.
It's all good. It's all good. I mean, we're here for the content, right? We're here for the content
Yeah.
and the stunning visuals and the stunning workflows which you've basically shown us for many years, and I think you topped it again. Very cool. Yeah, so let's just wait a minute to see if there's some questions coming in. So maybe I
Yep.
can ask one because one of the things which you mentioned is a really cool kind of detail, or it's probably not just a detail, but you mentioned the workflow which you've developed basically works or can ingest both GIS data, but also you also showed some CAD data.
Yes.
So is that CAD data which typically would in basically just for one of the projects, and that would be like, as you showed, for example, a proposal for park
Yes.
between two streets and so on?
Absolutely. Yeah. The thing is, at least I don't know for the other cities, but I think it's always the case. Well, yeah, the people actually planning and drawing things in details are doing that in, let's say, I know we are in a S3 city engine, but they do that in MicroStation for the vast majority of them, or in Fireworks, and or AutoCAD. Let's say AutoCAD, and there is I don't know if it's a tradition, but everything is designed. And I mean, it's probably logical because it's more convenient for them to just draw lines. They don't care about surfaces and topology and stuff like that. And this has been a real nightmare for me. But now I'm confident enough to have found like a fuzzy logic to because when you are defining things with linears and convert things as surfaces, it's not necessarily a good thing to have too many points, because as we all know, city engine users, we are only dealing with polygons, discrete things. So there is no nerves. There is no if you are and you want to keep things light and also true to the what's coming after. And we're really particularly insisting on the curves, because actually the real thing in Paris is that there are big stones. They're made up and between 1 meter to, it can be 1.5 meters, and one side of the curve is straight and the other side is curved. You see what I mean? So basically, the intersections, the real presentation between the pavement and the sidewalk should be tessellated, and this is something I eventually happened to realize. But you can't have, you know, a pavement and the sidewalks and a point in the middle, because everything is occlusion related, and if you don't have if you can't, for instance, do some occlusion intersection tests to test if your edge is inside something, you see what I mean? It's really difficult. So so I have to put, yeah. So there is in fact a data model for the geometry, and of course also for the attributes. So have to be precisely respected.
There's been a comment and a question which just came in before. So
yeah,
Amy wrote, "Amazing work, Romain. Thank you for sharing," and I definitely agree. And then there was a question by Thong. "Thank you very much for the presentation. I was wondering if you use generative AI to create CGA rules, and if so, at what stage of your workflow you apply it?"
Yeah, it's yeah. I'm working on that, obviously, and for the moment, it's just trying to isolate some tiny proof of concepts, but it's not fully working. And I still find, you know what I mean? It's still interesting as a intellectual challenge to try to solve things by myself, rather than, obviously, if I want to have a, I don't know, a math formula, for instance, yeah, this is a really great shortcut, and everything is done with that. So I don't have to do some research or some basic things. I mean, for statisticians or mathematicians to you know, to sort edges, to try to find angles between edges and so on, because it's but trying to find the best way to define the algorithm is a cool thing. Then the implementation itself, yeah, of course. And for buildings, yes, of course, it was a heavy process to labelize to everything for the buildings. But now that I have that, it's will be probably really interesting to have an AI loop to, but again, we'll see.
Nice. We're definitely looking forward to the
Yeah.
next steps on your journey. It's really cool to see the massive progress. So kudos for that.